In the deep silence of space, a shadow moved across the stars. It was not a ship. It was a city the size of a moon. Its engines were dark. Its weapons slept like quiet monsters. This was the Dread Fortress, home of the most feared ruler in the inn. Galaxy Emperor Varnock, the Dread. Every world knew his name. Every leader feared his voice. He ruled not with laws, but with fear. Where Varnock's flag rose, resistance fell. Planets burned, cities turned to dust, and voices went silent now. The Dread Fortress was coming toward a small blue planet Earth. In the United Nations control room, world leaders gathered. Emergency lights were red. Everyone stared at the giant screen showing the dark shape slowly entering Earth's orbit. A voice came from the speakers. Cold, slow, deep. You have 3 days to kneel, or you will burn. The room went quiet. No one spoke. The message was short, but the meaning was clear. One man broke the silence. He stood up, wearing a cheap suit and messy hair. He wasn't a general. He wasn't a president. He was a human. Diplomat named David Tran. He asked for one thing, a video camera. Inside the Dread Fortress, Varnock sat on a black throne made from the bones of defeated kings. His red eyes glowed under his metal crown. Around him, alien generals stood in silence. A screen appeared. It showed David Tran sitting in a chair. David smiled. Then he laughed. A simple, loud human laugh. You want us to kneel? Sorry, we're a bit busy paying rent, working 2 jobs, and watching cat videos. Try again later, Darth Baldy. He held up a cup of coffee. Good luck, buddy. The screen went black. The room inside the fortress froze. No one had ever laughed at Varno. No. One general looked at the Emperor. Shall we destroy them, my lord? Varnock's red eyes narrowed. No, he said slowly. We give them 3 days. Then, we erase them. Back on Earth, the video was shared across the internet. People laughed. They made memes. They made TikToks. Someone made a rap song about Darth Baldy. Kids wore Varnock masks on their faces. One child posted a dance video pretending to dodge the Emperor's laser. The planet was not afraid. It was laughing, but far above, in the cold metal halls of the Dread Fortress. Laughter was a strange and dangerous sound. One young alien worker, a slave from the planet Dorther, secretly watched the video in the dark. A small smile appeared on his thin face. He had never smiled before. Varnock stood in front of a window, staring at the blue world below. How can they laugh? He asked. Fear is the only language. His advisor, a gray-skinned creature named Yorl, answered carefully. Humans are different, my lord. They use humor to fight fear. Varnock turned sharply. No one laughs at Varnock. But they did. And the whole galaxy was watching in a small news station on a peaceful alien planet called Zelari. 2 reporters watched Earth's reaction. They had seen Varnock destroy empires. But now, for the first time, they saw something strange. Hope, did you see this? The female reporter said, the humans mocked him, and he did nothing. The male reporter nodded. Maybe fear is not the only way. 3 days? That was all Varnock had given. Now, only 2 remained. But Earth was not building weapons. They were building jokes. The laughter had become louder than its voice. It echoed through space, passed from station to station, bouncing off satellites, spreading across the stars, even in places where laughter was forbidden. Someone, somewhere, was whispering a joke about Darth Baldy, and Varnock felt it. Not in his body, but in his power. Fear was slipping, control was weakening, and the humans. They didn't even realize what they had done. Back in the UN control room, David Tran received another message from the stars. Final warning, kneel or burn. David looked at the others. Then he recorded another message. Dear Emperor Varnock, thank you for the warning, but Earth has faced tyrants before. We've defeated monsters with swords, tanks, and bombs. But our favorite weapon, he smiled. A good joke. Clicked send. High above, In the shadow of the dread fortress, Varnock stared into the void. "They do not fear me," he whispered. YORL said nothing, because he knew the Emperor had ruled for centuries through fear. But now, for the first time in galactic history, someone had laughed, and that laughter was louder than war. In the deep silence of space, a shadow moved across the stars. It was not a ship. It was a city the size of a moon. Its engines were dark. Its weapons slept like quiet monsters. This was the Dread Fortress, home of the most feared ruler in the galaxy. Every world knew his name. Every leader feared his voice. He ruled not with laws, but with fear. Where Varnock's flag rose, resistance fell. Planets burned, cities turned to dust, and voices went silent. Now, the Dread Fortress was coming toward a small blue planet, Earth. In the United Nations control room, world leaders gathered. The emergency lights were red. Everyone stared at the giant screen showing the dark shapes slowly entering Earth's orbit. A voice came from the speakers. Cold, slow, deep. You have 3 days to kneel. ... Or you will burn. The room went quiet. No one spoke. The message was short, but the meaning was clear. One man broke the silence. He stood up, wearing a cheap suit and messy hair. He wasn't a general. He wasn't a president. He was a human. Diplomat named David Tran. He asked for one thing: a video camera. Inside the Dread Fortress, Varnock sat on a black throne made from the bones of defeated kings. His red eyes glowed under his metal crown. Around him, alien generals stood in silence. A screen appeared. It showed David Tran sitting in a chair. David smiled. Then he laughed. A simple, loud human laugh. "You want us to kneel?" "Sorry, we're a bit busy paying rent, working 2 jobs, and watching cat videos. Try again later, Darth Baldy." He held up a cup of coffee. "Good luck, buddy." The screen went black. The room inside the fortress froze. No one had ever laughed at Varno. No. One general looked at the Emperor. "Shall we destroy them, my lord?" Varnock's red eyes narrowed. "No," he said slowly. "We give them 3 days. Then we erase them." Back on Earth, the video was shared across the internet. People laughed. They made memes. They made TikToks. Someone made a rap song about Darth Baldy. Kids wore Varnock masks on their faces. One child posted a dance video pretending to dodge the Emperor's laser. The planet was not afraid. It was laughing, but far above, in the cold metal halls of the Dread Fortress. Laughter was a strange and dangerous sound. One young alien worker, a slave from the planet Dorther, secretly watched the video in the dark. A small smile appeared on his thin face. He had never smiled before. Varnock stood in front of a window, staring at the blue world below. "How can they laugh?" he asked. "Fear is the only language." His advisor, a gray-skinned creature named Yorl, answered carefully. "Humans are different, my lord. They use humor to fight fear." Varnock turned sharply. No one laughs at Varnock. But they did. And the whole galaxy was watching in a small news station on a peaceful alien planet called Zelari. 2 reporters watched Earth's reaction. They had seen Varnock destroy empires. But now, for the first time, they saw something strange. "Hope, did you see this?" The female reporter said. "The humans mocked him, and he did nothing." The male reporter nodded. "Maybe fear is not the only way." 3 days? That was all Varnock had given. Now, only 2 remained. But Earth was not building weapons. They were building jokes. The laughter had become louder than its voice. It echoed through space, passed from station to station, bouncing off satellites, spreading across the stars, even in places where laughter was forbidden. Someone, somewhere, was whispering a joke about Darth Baldy. And Varnock felt it. Not in his body, but in his power. Fear was slipping. Control was weakening. And the humans. They didn't even realize what they had done. Back in the UN control room, David Tran received another message from the stars. Final warning, kneel or burn. David looked at the others. Then he recorded another message. Dear Emperor Varnock, thank you for the warning, but Earth has faced tyrants before. We've defeated monsters with swords, tanks, and bombs. But our favorite weapon? He smiled. A good joke. He clicked send. High above, in the shadow of the dread fortress. Varnock stared into the void. They do not fear me, he whispered. Why Aurel said nothing, because he knew the Emperor had ruled. For centuries, through fear. But now, for the first time in galactic history, someone had laughed, and that laughter was louder than war. The skies over Earth darkened not from clouds, but from shadow. The dread fortress had arrived. It blocked the sun for a moment, casting its cold shadow over New York City. People didn't scream. They didn't run. Instead, they pulled out their phones. They filmed and laughed. Inside the ship, Emperor Varnock stood near the landing bay doors. His black armor gleamed. His cape dragged behind him like smoke. Around him stood 50 elite guards, tall and silent. Varnock was not smiling. I want silence when I arrive, he said. I want them to see me and feel their weakness. His advisor Yorl bowed. Yes, my lord. But they are not afraid. Then they will learn. The ship landed in Central Park with a thunderous roar. Trees shook. Buildings trembled. Scattered into the sky, the doors opened slowly. Smoke hissed out, and Varnock stepped onto Earth. Cameras zoomed in. People gasped, but not in fear. They cheered, and then they laughed. A large stage had been set up just across the park. A banner waved above it. Welcome, Emperor Varnock. Earth's first alien roast. Comedians, actors, and influencers stood waiting with microphones. Varnock's red eyes narrowed. What is this? He growled. A tall woman in a gold jacket stepped forward. She held a mic and grinned. Ladies and gentlemen of Earth and the galaxy, please give a big round of applause to the one, the only, the galaxy's grumpiest space dad, Emperor Varnock. The crowd roared. Varnock looked around. Thousands of humans were gathered. Some wore fake armor. Some had painted their faces red. One kid wore a shirt that said, Varnock hugs like a jellyfish. The roast began. Comedians took turns. Varnock's so old. His first army used rocks and scared. Faces? I asked Varnock for a smile. My screen cracked. You know he's not scary when my cat has more TikTok followers. The humans laughed harder every minute. Some aliens, watching through secret feeds, began laughing too. Even a few of Varnock's own guards blinked in confusion. Varnock raised his hand and the laughter stopped. For a moment, he stepped forward. You dare mock me? David Tran stepped on stage and offered him a chair. Yes, and you came anyway. The crowd laughed again. Varnock's mouth twitched. Not a smile, but not anger either. You think this is power? David nodded. Yes, the power to speak. Power to joke. The power to live without fear. Yorl whispered to a guard. This is dangerous. Not for us. For him. Varnock looked at the crowd. So many humans. They weren't scared. Not even the children. One little girl handed him a small Toyan action figure of himself. It danced when you pressed its stomach and said in a funny voice, kneel or squeal. The crowd exploded with laughter. Varnock stared at it. He didn't understand. He had ruled by fear for over 100 years. But these humans weren't like others. They weren't waiting for a hero. They were becoming the story themselves. Suddenly, a message came through Varnock's internal comms. A whisper from one of his generals in orbit. Sir, small uprisings have begun across Sector 19. It started right after the roast went live. Varnock's eyes widened. This laughter, it was spreading. He turned to David. You have started a war. David shrugged, or ended one. Back on the Dread Fortress, Reeker watched the roast replayed by pirates across the galaxy. He saw aliens laughing real, free laughter for the first time. he uploaded more jokes. More memes, more courage, on Earth. The roast ended with fireworks, not weapons, not ships, just light and color. People danced, they sang, they took selfies with Varnock in the background, and he just stood there, silent, watching the power of fear, slipping from his grip like sand in a storm. That night, Varnock didn't return to his throne. He stood alone on the roof of the human hotel they had offered him, looking at the stars, listening to music, noise, laughter, all things he had tried to destroy for years, and for the first time in his long, powerful life, he felt something strange, small. The stars above Earth were quiet, but in the galaxy, everything was changing. Fear, once strong like steel, was starting to crack, and it began with a single laugh inside the dread fortress. Alarms blinked quietly. Not emergency sirens, but signals from across Varnock's empire. Reports were coming in. City 8 on Ralther refuses tribute. Miners on Voltan Sector are singing protest songs. Citizens in Zone 12 have painted murals of humans laughing. His generals stood around the war table. The mood was not usual. It was not panic. It was confusion. Commander Jarn slammed his fist. They're mocking us across 12 systems. It's spreading like fire. You're all. The quiet. Advisor spoke calmly. It is not fire. It is hope. It's been missing for a long time. Jarn turned to him. This is your fault. You said visiting Earth was wise? No, Yor-El replied. It was necessary. Far away, on a small moon called Dralos, a young boy named Kel was watching Earth's roast on a broken screen. His father, a factory worker, came home tired and worried. You shouldn't watch that, he warned. It's dangerous, Kel nodded. But kept watching. After his father left the room, he laughed, and he whispered, if they can laugh, maybe we can live. Back on Earth, David Tran met with global leaders in a quiet chamber below the UN. Varnock hasn't attacked one general, said, but his silence worries me more. David nodded. He's not used to silence. He's used to screams. Another diplomat asked, what do we do now? David took a deep breath. We show him what freedom looks like. That same day, humans released a galaxy-wide transmission. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a military warning. It was show. A full comedy show starring people from Earth, aliens who had escaped the Empire, and even a dog wearing a fake Varnock mask. The title, The Fear Stops Here. Inside the dread fortress, Varnock watched it in silence. At first, his fists were tight, but slowly he noticed something. His guard-strained killers were, all smiling, one even chuckled. He turned sharply. Did I allow laughter? The guard straightened. Apologies, my lord. But the smile stayed. Even fear was forgetting its own rules. Yor-El entered quietly. They do not fear you anymore. Varnock stared at the screen. Then they will die. Yor-El stepped forward. Or, you could change? Change? Varnock's voice was sharp. I am the Dread Emperor. Yor-El nodded. Yes. But the galaxy is done dreading. On station 11B, a secret message was being shared. It came from Reeker, a former slave inside the fortress. He had created a hidden broadcast. He called it the Freedom Frequency. People all over the Empire tuned in secretly. On old radios, on hacked panels, on walls where rebels had drawn human faces. And every night Reeker played Earth's laughter. Back in the throne room, Varnock stood alone. He looked at his reflection. In the dark glass, not a god, not a shadow, just a man. His voice was low. What if they're right? That night, Earth sent one more video. David Tran sat in a chair holding a photo of a burned city, a place Varnock had destroyed long ago. Seen what fear does, he said. It breaks people. It turns kings into monsters. But I've also seen what laughter can do. It brings the broken back together. He looked directly into the camera. If you want to rule through fear, go ahead. But know this. The universe is laughing now, and it's not laughing with you. It's laughing at you. For the first time in 100 years, Varnock didn't send a reply. He sat in silence, and in that silence, fear cracked again, not in others but inside him. The dread empire was falling, not in flames, not from war, but from within. Statues came down without bombs. Soldiers laid down weapons without blood. Entire star systems erased Varnak's image from their flags. And at the center of it all, Varnak stood without a crown in the Grand Council Hall of Station Voxer. Leaders from across the galaxy had gathered, human, alien, former enemies, even those who once feared to speak. His name now said it freely. Varnak entered the hall without guards, without armor. Without pride, he came not as emperor, but as a man. David Tran was there too. He stood at the back of the room, arms crossed, watching, waiting. The last time they had seen each other, one ruled the stars, and the other held a microphone. Now they were just men. A silence filled the chamber. Varnak walked slowly to the center. He looked around and then he bowed. Gasps filled the hall, but he stayed low, not in defeat. In choice, I come not to lead, he said, but to answer. Councilwoman from planet Drellin stood up. You burned my city. You erased our skies. Another voice from the crowd. You made my people slaves. Another, you stole our years. Varnak didn't argue. He didn't defend. He simply nodded. I did, and I will never undo it.
No.
But I will never hide from it.
Ow.
David Tran stepped forward. He held no anger, only steady eyes. He spoke clearly. Varnak, what do you want now? The chamber leaned in. The man who ruled through fear would now speak his desire. Varnak breathed in. I want to build. The room was silent again, this time not in fear, in shock. He continued. I've broken enough. I want to build hospitals, schools, homes, for those I hurt, for those I ruled, for those I never met. A young alien child in the crowd whispered, Can fear build anything? No, but courage can. But courage can. That night, the stars felt brighter. On old warships, weapons were melted into farming tools. On planets once ruled by terror, children played openly, and across the galaxy, one phrase began to spread. Even fear can fall. Wrecker, now free and living on Earth, watched the news. Varnak had donated the Dread Fortress to be turned into a university. A place where anyone human or alien could learn without fear. Reeker smiled and whispered, the fortress was never strong. It just needed someone to laugh first. On Earth, David walked beside Varnak in a garden outside the UN building. No cameras, no crowd, just two men. You were never a monster, David said. Varnak looked ahead. I wanted to be. Because monsters don't feel pain. And now, Varnak paused. Now, I feel everything. In a distant colony, a young boy named Kel once scared. Once Silence stood on a stage, he wore a small robe and held a microphone. His voice was shaking, but he spoke. I was afraid of the dark. But then I learned to laugh. Now I light the dark for others. Applause filled the room. Laughter followed, the kind that heals. The empire had fallen, but something new was rising. Not a kingdom, not a throne, just a man, and the truth he chose. To face, the stars were quiet again. Not the silence of fear, the silence of peace. For the first time in 100 years, no planets burned. No colonies trembled. No dark shadows spread across the galaxy. The dread empire was gone, and in its place, something new was growing. Varnak stood on a small platform in what used to be the throne. Room of the dread fortress. Now it was a public hall. Children played on the steps. A library filled the walls. The great red banners of war had been torn down. In their place hung murals painted by students, some showing Varnak planting trees, others showing humans and aliens laughing together. Today, he would speak one last time, not as a ruler, not as a monster, as a man. David Tran sat in the front row, beside him were Rika, Ural, Kel, and hundreds more who had helped change the galaxy. Reporters Silent. Cameras were ready, but no one said a word. They were waiting for Varnak's final speech. His last word. He stepped forward slowly. No armor, just a simple robe. He looked out at the crowd. Eyes that once feared him now looked back with trust, and he began. I ruled through fear because I thought it was the only way. I was wrong. He paused. Fear builds nothing. It only breaks. It turned me into a shadow. It turned this fortress into a prison. Not just for others, but for me. Looked up at the stars through the glass ceiling. But humans. Taught me something I never expected. They laughed. Even when I wanted them to cry, they laughed at me. And showed me what courage really is. Not weapons. Not war. Laughter. Truth. Light. He turned back to the crowd. I don't ask for forgiveness. I ask for one thing only. Let the next empire be built on joy, not fear. On hope, not power. Let it belong to all of you, not to one man. He stepped down from the stage, and just like that, was over. The speech, the empire, the old Varnak. David stood and clapped. Not because of the words, but because Varnak had kept. His promise, he changed. Reeker hugged a child beside him and whispered, "That's what real power looks like." Kel stood, holding a notebook titled, "Jokes That Saved the Galaxy." And Yorl smiled quietly, his old eyes full of peace. Later that night, Varnak walked alone through a quiet garden on Earth. He picked up a flower. Simple, bright, alive, he placed it in the soil beside a small sign that read, "In memory of those we lost. In honor of those who stood. In hope for those yet to come." A small girl nearby looked up at him. "Mister, were you really the scary guy from the videos?" Varnak knelt down. "Yes, I was." She blinked. "You don't look scary," he smiled. Gently, "I'm not anymore." She nodded. "Good," and ran off to play. Above them, the stars watched in silence. But this time, they were smiling too. The dread fortress had never shaken, not from weapons, not from storms, not even when it crushed planets under its shadow. But today, trembled. Not from outside forces, from inside. In the fortress corridors, whispers moved faster than orders guards. Were talking in low voices. Technicians laughed quietly over screens. The cleaning bots even played soft earth music during recharge. Fear was leaking from the walls like a slow. Silent Gas.Varnok stood in his war chamber alone, screens all around. Him played images from Earth. One showed children dancing in masks of his face, laughing, pretending to give fear speeches. Another showed a protest on planet Gorik, where rebels held signs that read, "We don't fear, we joke." Varnak equals old news, and the worst of all. A video from one of his own colonies. His statue, once tall and powerful, had been painted pink, a clown nose added. The caption below read, "Fear." Never heard of him. Commander Jarn stormed into the chamber. "My lord, we must respond. Whole sectors are refusing control." Varnak didn't turn. How Jarn blinked, with fire, with pain, with destruction. Varnak finally turned, slowly, and when they laugh at the fire too. Far below, in the fortress, maintenance tunnels Reeker moved silently. He'd grown bold. With the help of hidden allies, he had rerouted a small antenna deep in the ship every 12 hours. The dread fortress accidentally broadcast Earth comedy shows across its own systems. Not orders, not threats. Laughter, and it worked. Small riots turned into movements. Secret meetings became public marches. The fortress trembled not from violence, but from truth. On Earth, David Tran sat at a quiet lake, being interviewed for the third time. "Do you think he'll attack now?" the reporter asked. David smiled. "He already did. But we didn't fight back with guns. We fought back by not being afraid." The reporter hesitated. "And if he changes?" David looked up at the stars. "Then maybe." He was never a monster, just a scared man pretending to be one. Back inside the dread fortress, Varnock walked alone through the Hall of Triumphs. Walls were lined with pictures of his conquests. Planets, bowed leaders cried. Empires burned. But he stopped at one frame, one that had no fire, no death. It was the frame from Earth. David Tran, raising a coffee cup, smiling, mocking, and still. Alive, YORL, appeared beside him. "My lord," he said softly, "the fortress is no longer yours." "What do you mean?" Varnock's voice was sharp. "I mean, it belongs to them now. To those who believe in laughter." In light, Varnock's red eyes glowed. "They are fools." Yorl didn't move. "No, they are free." That night, for the first time in his rule, Varnock stood before his troops, not to shout, not to threaten, to ask, "Do you still follow me?" The silence was heavy. Then one soldier stepped forward, removed his helmet, spoke clearly. "We followed fear. Now we follow truth." I dropped the helmet on the floor. It echoed like thunder. One by one, others did the same. Varnock said nothing. Only watched as the fear he built crumbled before him. Rika, watching from the hidden antenna room, smiled with tears in his eyes. "They're not afraid anymore," he whispered. And across the stars, as news spread, statues fell. Broke. Jokes were shared. The Empire didn't fall in battle. It fell in laughter. But something deeper was happening inside Verno. Not rage, not sorrow. Something stranger, doubt, for the first time in a century. He didn't know what came next, the throne. Room of the dread fortress was cold. Once it was the heart of fear. Now it was quiet. No guards. No shouting. Just one man in black armor, sitting still. Emperor Varnaka, eyes closed. Mindful, he had crushed worlds, burned cities, broken kings. But now he was being undone by laughter. Across the galaxy, rebellion didn't come with guns. It came with paint, with jokes, with songs. Miners on Astrian now wore Varnak masks and danced during work hours. Students on planet Yeth uploaded comedy skits mocking his speeches. A bakery on Zeralon sold fear-free cupcakes, little red-eye toppings. Even his own officers were leaving, quietly or proudly. YORL stood near the doorway. "My lord," he said softly, "the time to choose has come." Varnak didn't open. His eyes, "Choose what?" Yorl stepped closer. "To fight the laughter, or to join it." Varnock's voice was tired. "You want me to become a clown?" Yorl shook his head. "No. I want you to become something greater. Something you've never been before." On Earth, a new video message was sent into space. It was simple. David Tran, sitting in a dark room, speaking into the camera. "Varnock, if you're listening, this is not a trap. This is not a test. This is a door. You don't have to rule through fear anymore. You don't have to rule at all." He leaned forward. "You can choose to be human." The galaxy waited, billions of lives paused. Would the Emperor strike back? Or would he answer? Inside the dread fortress, Reeker was caught. Guards surrounded him in the antenna room, but they didn't hurt him. They asked him one question. "Is it really over?" He looked at them, tired, proud. "Yes, let him go." Varnak stood again. He walked the halls slowly. No one bowed this time. No one knelt, but they didn't run either. Some looked at him, not with fear, with curiosity even. Hope. In his private chamber, Varnak opened an old chest. Inside was his first uniform before the armor. Before the crown, a simple robe. Scientist's robe. He used to be a thinker. Before he chose fear, he stood in front of the mirror. He removed his armor, piece by piece, heavy, cold, sharp. And when he stood in the robe, his reflection felt strange, not weak, free. YORL entered once more. "Have you made your choice, my lord?" Varnak turned. "Don't call me that." Jorl paused. "Then, what shall I call you?" Varnak thought, then answered quietly, "Call me Varnak." Later that day, the dread fortress sent out one final signal. It was not a command, it was an invitation. To all those who have lived in fear, the dread Empire is no more. I am not your emperor. I am a man, and I am done with fear." Galaxies paused, and then they roared with joy. Planets erupted in cheers. Flags fell, and for the first time in living memory, peace felt real. On Earth, David received the message. He didn't smile right away. He only whispered, he chose. Walked onto the main deck. No crown, no cape. Only silence around him. But this time, it wasn't empty. It was full of new beginnings.